Now, without further ado, hold on one second. And now, without further ado, let's welcome our guest of honor today, Shortbox Nation. Let's give it up for Torunn Grønbekk. Oh, hit the wrong button. Wait. Let me do that one more time. And now, without further ado, let's welcome our guest of honor today, Shortbox Nation. Let's give it up for Torunn Grønbekk to the show. Hey, Torunn, how you doing?
That was a lovely introduction. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Hey, people may not know. I want to put this at the top. I'm recording here in Jacksonville, Florida. Everyone knows that. And you are recording all the way from Norway, which I think you might win an award for longest distance interview. I don't think I've ever recorded anyone further out from you. So you got the bar pretty high. All right. This is a first.
Fantastic. I love staying out here on the very edge of the world. It feels nice to sort of,
secluded.
It feels like when the world will end, we will be the last one to go. Maybe. Yeah.
So I got a place to crash. That's what you're saying. The world comes to end. I could hit you. Hey, Torunn, look, the world's going to shit. America is definitely going to shit. Can I come out there?
Yeah. We'll give you some fish, some reindeer, and then we can.
Reindeer. Wow.
That's my sort of go-to thing when people come over. I make them reindeer stew, and then I sort of look at them and hope that they eat it. Just sort of stare at them, waiting for a reaction. And I've heard a couple of times where people go, "Is this the Rudolph animal?" That I'm like, "Yeah, you're eating Rudolph."
You're like, the red nose is actually a fine delicacy in Norway. Okay, it's packed with flavor. Okay, color me morbidly interested. All right, I won't lie. I'm usually down to try anything food-wise. I'm not a picky food eater. So you say reindeer, and I mean, a part of me is a little sad. I'm going to be eating Dasher, Prancer, and all of them. But at the same time, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Things like they live so well. They run around up north and have a great life, and then we do eat them when they're when their time has come. But it is a tradition. I gave Brian one came over with his family, and I made them reindeer, and they were too polite to not eat it.
Oh my God,
which was great.
Can you write about that? Can that be your next indie, comic creator-owned comic? Is Brian K. Vaughan being fed reindeer stew? I'd love to read
Desperately trying to be polite. It's yeah.
Hey, can I ask you a stupid American question? I'm risking coming off like a stupid American, but I am curious about this. We are recording on Sunday, November 30th, which is Thanksgiving weekend. Thanksgiving for me was on Thursday. What is Norway? Is Thanksgiving celebrated at all in Norway, or is it just like another day for y'all?
It's just another day. It's one of the it's one of the very few times, because we have a lot of free time compared to you guys, just in general.
Absolutely.
And I'm used to my 6 weeks off at summer, 2-3 weeks Christmas, a full week at Easter. And then I work with these poor Americans, editors who are like, what are you talking about? Like, Easter, that's not a thing. That's, and we're the most secular country in the world. Like, we couldn't give less of a shit about Jesus. But we're like, Easter, we're gonna take it seriously.
Don't mess with my eggs or the bunnies, damn it, okay?
Whatever the fuck we have to do to pretend, we're gonna do it. So, Thanksgiving is one of the few times where the Americans are off, and we are still working.
Yeah,
and I think that's a good thing for you guys. I think it's good.
Yeah. We need one win compared to you guys. We need one thing to boast and brag about. Okay, I guess I had a feeling that obviously I knew Thanksgiving wasn't celebrated anywhere else, but I'm almost curious, like, what if other countries do anything? I guess let me ask this then: have you ever been able to celebrate Thanksgiving? Have you ever had like a Thanksgiving feast? Have you ever come to like the States during Thanksgiving?
No, but I did. I've been thinking about it, because I just want to. It seems like such a good thing, and there are some people that would host me if I showed up at their houses. So I almost did it this year, because Erica Schultz is a good friend of mine, and she's too kind to say, "Dude, just don't." And I was very close to just be like, "Hey, I just want to taste turkey or whatever."
Yeah.
I just want to I like to do the most American things. I like a good American parody. So if I go to an American diner and the waitress is she's a little rude and she's been waiting tables for 45 years, like, that's the best day of my life. You know?
Oh yeah, no, the more angrier and maybe even more miserable that the server or hostess is at an American diner, the better the food's gonna be. I mean, you're gonna have to
Oh
put
yeah.
up with
Oh
an
yeah.
attitude. I mean, that's why you tip. You know, they're out here working their ass off. She's probably working on her birthday. Matter of fact, it's her birthday when you went, but the food's gonna be great.
The food's going to be great, and I'm going to say something just stupid enough to be like, I'm going to over tip. I'm going to, because I'm going to say some sort of, like I do that with
Yeah.
I do that with my dentist all the time. I'll say something that's sort of vaguely crossing the line, and then I can't fix it because she's obviously doing shit in my mouth.
Oh, yeah, it's
And
the
I
worst.
sometimes do that with waiting stuff too. I'll make a bad joke, and it's a linger in the air, and then I can't fix it, which is what I try to do. And then I think like, oh, it's gonna be a good story at some point.
Yeah, you're
It's
like
not
shit.
right now.
You're like shit. Now I got to tip 20% on this tooth extraction, and they're already charging me an arm and a leg.
Well, yeah, and it's just I don't know.
Well, look, in exchange, I mean, I have self-invited myself over to your house during the apocalypse, so I guess it's only fair that I say that if you've ever find yourself in Jacksonville, Florida during Thanksgiving, I will happily host you. My mom makes the best turkey in the world, and I put that up against anyone. All right, I'm here to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, Florida, never been. Seems like a place full of American parodies. Like that just seems like the best place in the world. I desperately want
That's
to go.
I think that's our state motto, by the way, is Florida. We're full of American parodies.
Yeah. And the things like I'm not making fun of you guys. I just want to make that because I do
No, please do.
sincerely
Yeah,
like
everyone
I
else
do.
does.
Well, the thing is, like I feel like you're you know you're skirting on the edge of madness and
Mm.
all of like it's a bunch of nonsense right now. But having said that, I do love America so much, and I love being there. And like I keep making it like I made Jason Aaron take me to Arby's at some point because
Stop. Wait.
yeah, it's true.
Okay. Look, I'm just I don't want to. You feel free to take this idea. So just steal it. But I think a comic compilation of you and all of your experiences with America through the lens of other comic creators, like this Brian K. Vaughan story, this Jason Aaron Arby story. I think there's something here, Dorn.
It's just the patience of Jason Aaron looking at me while I'm discovering that when they do say all the meats or whatever the fuck it is, they do mean all of it. Like
Yeah,
there's
except for
not like
reindeer. You won't find reindeer
oh
there.
yeah, sure, but I thought it would be like a symbolic tomato or something in there, like a
Yeah.
symbolic piece of lettuce, like something. But it's just no, just meat. That's what we get. It's glorious, but it's very kind of him
Oh,
to take
God
me to
bless
these
Jason
places.
Aaron, giving you
Yeah.
the full American experience. I love it. All right.
I made him buy me a Twinkie because I never had one. And I took one bite and it's disgusting. Like it's absolutely revolting, right? And he was like, "Yeah, I told you it's fucking disgusting." And so I was like, "I'm going to throw it away." He's like, "No, you can't throw away a Twinkie." And he
No, you
had the
can't.
rest of it. And I was just like, it's just so beautiful. I
It
love you
is.
guys so much. So yeah, but that's a good idea. I was just eating with comic creators
That's a good
throughout
one.
the world.
That's coming out on Images 2027, folks. Be on the lookout for that. All right, Torn. I want to say real quick. Last night, I'm finishing up my research. Just scrolling some stuff, and I went on your Instagram and found myself in a pretty long rabbit hole just scrolling your Instagram and admiring how talented you are at painting. And this was completely new to me, so I imagine it might be new to some listeners that only know you from your comic writing. But you are a talented painter, and your
Thank you so
Instagram is
much.
chock full of hyper realistic oil paintings. And I guess I want to lead with that. Like, where did you learn to paint? Are you like self-taught, or are you trained?
No, I'm not even a little bit. No, I just started painting at some point, and it makes sense to me in a way that drawing does not. I don't think I'm a particularly good drawer, if that's the thing, but painting works for me, and it's a nice process. And I've been sort of over the past decades, I've been sort of going back and forth on whether I should do fine art as a sort of if I'm going to be a fine artist and do that thing. And I've told this story before other places. I had a moment maybe 12 years ago or something. I was in New York and I had an exhibition, my first exhibition in New York with my art. and I was sort of walking around the opening and interacting with the New York art people who are like they are a parody of themselves, you know? There's no level of pretentiousness that they will not sort of barge through. And I love that. I think that's great, but it was still like, that was a lot. And I was feeling something, but I've scheduled the exhibition to sort of be the same week as New York Comic Con. And I went to New York Comic Con the next day, and I had a very sort of, oh, these are my people sort of a feeling. Because I love the, I don't know, there's something about the comics people that makes sense to me. And I think there is, when it comes to sort of quality artists, we have the best artists in the world, the least pretentious and best artists in the world.
Yeah.
So I always sort of landed on, I want to do comics.
You know, I that resonates with me, and I agree with you there. I used to work at a museum here in Jacksonville, Florida. It is like one of our nicer fine arts museum. It's got like tons of amazing paintings and portraits. I was a security guard, so I worked a lot of different events, a lot of private events, a lot of public events. And you're totally right. There is an air of pretentiousness that comes with like the fine arts community. And I think a lot of that has to deal with like just the amount of money, you know, that is being traded and bought and all of that. Like the economy of, you know, fine arts is ridiculous compared to like comic book, right? Like comic books, we're dealing with like starving artists, like and sometimes in like a very literal sense. And I think that gives you a sense of like, I don't know. I feel like with comic book artists and professionals, there's a sense of like groundedness, like, you know, just like your everyday people. That's I don't know, just refreshing. You feel like you can connect with these people a lot easier.
Yeah, and I think there is something to sort of talk about this a lot, like sort of getting the joke of the lives that we live. Like there is a sort of, at least to me, there's a level of humor in everything.
Yeah.
And we do accept so many ridiculous things on a regular basis. We sort of accept that, like, a lot of things that we just kind of go, well, it is how it is, but we do see how ridiculous it is, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I do like it when it comes to, like, I think I use this, again, as an example, and I wrote a foreword for Babs, the Garth Ennis book. And there was a story there about how, because they get the joke, like Garth gets the joke everywhere. And there is something to, you know, like I used to be, or I am still, like a huge metalhead. But I used to go to concerts. That was all I did. I would go to concerts, and I would go to, because we could, you know, in the 90s, concerts were $20 instead of, you know, whatever.
$700,000, yeah.
It's one of the great sort of, I think it's we truly lost something when we fucked that up. I think, like, truly, when like when the kids nowadays, they can't just go and watch music for 20 quid. Yeah, but anyway, and the thing, in a sort of metally, gothy environment, there is a lot of ridiculous things, but people get the joke, right? But they have people, sometimes you'll get people, like I had a dude come up to me during that concert, and he was like full on vampire costume, and he did a whole like, together in the darkness we shall go, like it's trying to pick me up, and I was sort of like, this isn't, you have to get the joke. I know I look like a vampire queen, but you have to,
yeah, tongue in cheek, you know, like there's a sense of kayfabe there.
Yeah. And I think the same with the fine art people. Like I think it's great. I think it's fantastic when people do quirky, wonderful thing and live in all sort of different ways. Like during the opening, at some point I was introduced to someone. Went, I need you to meet Mathilde. Like, she's the most amazing person. She's done her silent period. So they introduced me to a woman who doesn't speak. Wow. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, what do we do now? Like, I think that's funny. I think that's fundamentally funny. She didn't. She did. It was like, no.
Yeah. She's not trying to.
I don't think she didn't say anything. So, like, but it's still like there's something to like super pretentious spaces where I think you have to see the joke. Like, you have to join us in the humor, or it's just going to be pathetic, you know?
Yeah, and awkward.
And if you do, you can do whatever the fuck you want. You just have to have a little humor about it.
I agree.
Comics people are easier. Comics people are wonderful.
You know, you brought up Garth, and to tie it back to your incredible painting skills, you did a cover for Battle Action, the comic series, which is it is an anthology series that collects a bunch of war comic stories. I think Garth Ennis is like he does like an ongoing story in every single issue. I don't know too much of the background. I just know it's an awesome compilation of great action war comics, and you've got a story in I think issue like 8 from last year. But you did a painted cover for this particular issue, which is it's Battle Action number 8, came out last year. It's incredible, by the way. You've got a short story in there too called Nina Petrova and the Fighting Russian. I read that last night. I actually bought the issue from 2000 AD. It's awesome. And then I started going into some more of your other comics, and I see a common through line, which is you write badass comics, like just point blank period. You write some badass comics, and hearing you say that you're really into heavy metal, you go to the shows. I think it's all starting to make a lot of sense. I think you write action really well. I think you write like tough situations, but tougher people. I like how much grit you have. Like I was reading your Punisher, one of the Punisher one shots you did. Uh, Loved your voice for Frank Castle, and then I read like Catwoman, and there's like a sense of like grit to her too. And I'm curious, like, where does that come from? Like, would you consider yourself like someone that's got grit, that's tough? Do you watch like I guess a lot of action movies? I guess where does this knack for telling tough stories come from?
First of all, I think that's the nicest things anyone's ever said about me. That was the
My pleasure.
best
I
minute
mean
of
it.
my life. Jesus
Oh.
fucking Christ. That's so kind of you.
If you want, I'll clip just that segment for you. You can play that on rewind when you need that
Yeah,
confidence
yeah.
boost.
Just like every morning, just start there
I
and be like,
got
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah.
Words of affirmation.
I think it's I don't know. I'm deeply interested in humanity on a sort of through a non-judgmental lens. I like that we are what we are, and I think you can sort of sanitize it and explain it, and we have the good and the bad and everything. But I think there is uh, if you can get to a person and get their honest reasoning for doing whatever they've done, and not judge it, just look at it. That's the most interesting thing in the world. So what I do is I read a lot of memoirs, read a lot of like military history. That's been sort of a thing. I started reading. I think it started with a biography of Potemkin when I was like 11 or something, and I was like a properly pretentious cunt when I was 11. Through my teenage years, if we're absolutely honest, like just revoltingly pretentious. And I started with the Russians, and the Russians are fucking crazy, but they do sort of love to sort of lay around in the worst of the human misery in a way, and it's a very interesting thing what we have allowed and what we do keep allowing to happen, and how what reasoning and motives we give, and I find it fascinating that we can be like so aware of our capacity for a lot of really awful things, while on the other hand being very surprised every time something awful happens. And I think there is a lot to learn in just looking at people, and having in the back of your mind that everyone thinks that they're the hero, and to a certain extent also the victim of something. And whoever you meet, like however fucking stupid you find them, in their head they think like, no, I'm the one who knows what I'm doing, which I find fascinating. So I try to approach like every book with the same sort of. I try to have a certain extent of just I want realism in there, and that's sort of. I think like if you're gonna write a revenge story, it should always be about the fact that the person who is executing whatever revenge has a problem moving on, rather than trying to make some sort of about justice, I suppose. Because if you look at people who have really truly gone through the most awful things in the world, revenge is very rarely the thing that they think about.
Hmm.
And I think that's one of the things that we do tend to get wrong a lot in pop culture. I think we get a lot of things wrong in pop culture, and I think it's worth trying to twist it back to feel more real in a way.
Yeah. I mentioned a couple of the characters that and titles that you wrote that you're writing currently and have written in the past and in the beginning. I said Catwoman, Carnage, Thor, and Red Sonja. I want to stay on those four. Which character would you say is most like you? Which one is furthest from you? And which one would you say taught you the most about yourself?
It's a good question. I will say that I found writing Carnage and Cletus Cassidy's like ridiculously easy.
Oh,
That
wow.
was the one that came the easiest, which is sort of terrifying.
Why,
Um,
why is that? Why is that? Is it because you were just able to like tap into like these dark corners pull from some of these memoirs and things you've
well,
written
the
about?
thing is, like, when you write Punisher, one of the great trick about writing Punisher is to kill people who everyone agrees needs to be killed, and there are a bunch of those people where you sort of that there is supposed to be a justice and there's supposed to be a whole system and a process, but we all know the people who are just like, well, they can probably die though. That they are probably they we could do without those fuckers. Um, and that's a sort of it's almost harder to find the cases where you can sort of get the audience on board if that's what you want to do, which isn't necessarily the case when you're writing Punisher. But that's sort of the main um, was it like the main challenge is just finding something that doesn't feel trite but still feels
Hmm.
like something where the reader will go, yeah, I can see how we got there. But with Carnage, you can just be fucking insane. Like you can just do because Cletus is absolutely batshit insane, which is
Yeah.
fantastic. So, and there is a sort of like when I was writing Valkyries, I had Jane Foster and I had Runa, the two
Hmm.
sort of Valkyries. And Jane will always do the right thing, you know. She will always do a good, like she will do the thing that you know is right to do. While Runa will do what I would want to do in that situation. And I think it's like Cletus, he does the things that like me at my absolute worst, well, I would go
Yeah.
like,
Hmm.
it would be fun to light that shit on fire and just see what happened. That's what happened with Cletus. Uh,
I feel that. Okay.
and Catwoman, I will say, like, she feels so like me in so many ways, and I think there is a certain um, I feel a certain responsibility to bring out some aspects of her that we haven't necessarily dwelled on earlier. And I want to, as far as I can, try to give her as much complexity as we can. And I think it's been sort of, you have a lot of different ways of viewing Catwoman, and you have like a bunch of people who see her through the lens of Bruce, like as a love interest, and then you have a bunch of other people who seem to be very obsessed with her backstory, and they want her to have been canonically a prostitute because that gives them something. And I like to play around there a bit because I find it interesting how we look at women and how you can sort of take away a lot about a woman if you put her in certain situations. And I would like her to be able to be all of the things and still be a person and sort of, she can both be horny and competent.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't have to be mutually exclusive for sure.
But yeah, it happens. I mean, we all get a little stupid if we're too excited. I'm just saying.
Yeah, facts. Okay. We brought up Thor a couple times, and I've been dying to ask this question because I ended up learning that your name, Torunn, you were named after your father, who is also named Tor after Thor. And I'm curious to know, like, how does your dad feel about your career specifically like your time writing Thor. Like I feel like it's a very interesting, like full circle, almost like meta moment. I'm sure like that it also dawned on you as well. But like, what does your dad think about your writing career?
The thing is, like, my parents, I don't think they've ever read anything I've written
Well, interesting.
ever,
Okay.
which is sort of it's a weird thing, and and they don't like. My dad has no understanding or concept of what I do and what's a big deal and what's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Um, but I did at some point because my dad used to every morning during the weekends when we had like a lot of time to have breakfast, I would climb up on his shoulders and he would tell stories about a giant named Ostegumpen, which loosely translates to the cheese giant. And he would send, Ostegumpen out on different sort of adventures, and it would always be some sort of absurdity that would be half relevant to whatever we were dealing with, and
Interesting.
we would never sort of let the story end. So it would just be a continuation, like weekend after weekend. And I wrote that into Thor. I wrote that into Thor that Odin used to tell Thor stories about Osterbumpen, and that when Odin finally leaves Mjolnir, this is, he was in the hammer for a while, it's a whole thing. But when Odin needed to tell Thor that he was gone for good this time, like he was dead for good. And he told Jane Foster the ending of Ostergumpen's story and had her tell it to Thor as a sort of way of saying goodbye and be like, now the story has ended. And
Wow.
and it turned into a thing. Like it was a few like articles about that thing, and I sent it off to my dad, and he's like, I don't know how to feel about this, but it feels something. Like he understands that there's
Yeah.
something there. I don't think he necessarily quite understand the magnitude of it.
Yeah, that is fucking beautiful, for lack of better terms. That's like really awesome. You're able to incorporate. So your dad was making up these stories. This isn't based
Oh
on like
yeah,
some. That is badass. So in a way, wow, that makes like the full circle moment even more relevant. And I guess like if your love of comics, it sounds like didn't come from your parents, but definitely storytelling. I guess where did your love of comics come from? Like, what was your first conscious exposure to comic books? And I guess also to add to that, if I may compound this question, what is the comic book scene like in Norway as you're growing up?
the thing is that there is a this also ties into the entire thing really, because there is a Danish comic book creator called Peter Madsen. He's not the murderer, because there is a Peter Madsen who
Thank
killed
you for clarifying that. Yeah.
he made a submarine and killed a woman on it. Like it's an awful story. But the other one, he wrote a comic called Valhalla, where he takes all the old myths and sort of and twists them around, and they're just the most delightful thing you've ever. Like I wish it was more widely available outside of Scandinavia. But my mom was like, she would tell us the North myths like they were real, and I grew up with them like that. That's the only mythology that I grew up with. And I'm we all of like me and all my siblings have Norse names, and it's a whole thing. So she would keep those comics around. So that was sort of my first exposure to them. And um, my dad liked the Far Sides. Is that what you
Yeah.
call them?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Far Side. Hell yeah.
yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, so they would always be sort of around. And at some point, I would start to sort of. I knew that I enjoyed comics, and I would go to. We had like a few years later when I had, first of all, some money, not a lot of money, but just some money. And the moment I could start reading English with any sort of confidence, I would get into all of the other comics. I would buy things from Britain and a lot of like the 2000 ADs and
Hmm.
Battle Action, as we briefly touched on earlier. And I would get these comics just out of order, of course. It would just be whatever someone
Sure.
had at some point given to the thrift store. We had one dude who ran the store who had lost all sort of will to live. So if we came up with like a stack of books, he would be like, "Oh, it's 100 kroner," and we would go, "We only have 10." He would be like, "Oh, fuck it, just take it." And
Those
I
are
wish,
those are my favorite people to own a thrift shop. The ones that don't really give a shit about what they got. You know, one
yeah,
man's trash is another man's treasure.
exactly. And just you could just tell that he was just like, "Oh, it's gonna take me longer to put those fucking things back. I'm just gonna, yeah." But I owe him a lot. But we
Rich
had a
Hasta.
lot of comics from French and Belgium. There would be a bunch of those translated, and the comic scene in Norway is also quite interesting. There are a bunch of very talented people, but we don't have the same tradition as in America, where you have a writer and an artist and a whole process. Like, you usually have people who sit at home and they make the entire thing and they present the book as a sort of like, this is my book. So a lot of the time when I talk to other Norwegian comic creators, I have to sort of explain what I'm doing in a
Interesting.
way. Yeah.
I guess, do you have with, I was praising how talented you are in terms of like painting. Do you have any goals, whether they be, future or immediate, to do your own creator-owned comic from like top to bottom, writing, pictures, and all of that? Is there any, I guess?
I couldn't. The thing is, like, it's so hard. It's the hardest job in the world, and I think about it sometimes when we're in mid some sort of process and the pages come in and they look, amazing, and then the editor will be like, "Hey, could you just tweak something there?" And the artist goes in and changes, and I think like I would deal with those sort of things very badly, very poorly. I wouldn't like that at all. However bright they like would be, and then it takes me too long to produce a page. It would be one of those, yeah.
Yeah, I like what you're saying about the burden of being a comic book artist, and I think it's a part of like why I think comic books is such an interesting business and medium, is that you've got like this art side where it's like you've got some of the most insanely talented people in the world writing and drawing, producing comic books. But then there's this commerce side where it's like, hey, in order for us to sell these books, there's certain things that we need to do. And then, and I guess maybe that just, I can surmise it to like the collaboration in comics is always interesting, where it's like a little bit of a give and pull, where it's like you're an artist, you're sensitive about your shit, but then you're also willing to make these changes, trusting in the editor or the creative team in the belief of like, hey, we're all striving towards the same thing, which is producing like this really good piece of art that'll sell too. So yeah, I agree. It is interesting to like, I imagine from your perspective of like, damn, I'm an artist myself. I spend a lot of time on my paintings. Putting yourself in a position for like, if someone told me that I needed to change like something to blue when it's red, and it's like, wait a minute, motherfucker, who are you?
Yeah. And I was like, I very rarely give any notes on the art unless like, because I feel like I've done my part and I've given it off to someone who has interpreted it in a different way. And unless their way of interpreting it fucks with something that they don't know is coming up or something, I usually I'll figure out a way to tweak the lettering to make sure that sort of everything works.
That's smart.
But I mean, the editors will sometimes be like, "Oh, well, in the script, blah blah blah," and I feel like, well, I mean, I wouldn't, but you go ahead. I'm just saying, like, it is sincerely the hardest job you can.
Yeah.
I don't know, and especially like monthly comics, when you have to produce a comic book in just, I suppose, like DC seems to have a little more room and space in their schedules, so they get a little more time. But sometimes we've been behind on things from Marvel where I think like they can't be. I'm surprised they're eating because they're working so hard.
Yeah. So I on the topic of that, you are currently writing, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, in terms of monthly comics, you're writing Catwoman for DC right now. You're writing Spider-Girl for Marvel. You've got Nightmare Before Christmas coming up in January. Are you writing any other monthly titles? Am I missing one?
Well, I mean, I am writing some other things.
Sure, like one shots.
But yeah, and the things that haven't been announced yet, and the things like Nightmare Before Christmas, I think I delivered the last script for that a year ago or something.
Oh, wow, you are ahead of the game.
Oh yeah, and I'm to the point where, because it's going back and forth between Dynamite and Disney, and this is one of those projects where Disney has sort of the final word on everything.
Yeah.
So all my bad jokes have been sort of weeded out with love and care by the Disney team, and I've sort of like I've done my part, and I hope that it's going to turn. I hope the rights in sort of sanitizing it, and they probably are, because they do know the market well, and it is supposed to be an all ages book, and I think it's a good thing that you can sort of give it to a kid and trust that it'll be okay.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I have children, and I just let them read whatever they want.
Yeah, that's a good that's a good tester basis right there. It's like, if my kids like it, that's who I'm writing it for.
Yeah, but then again, I was thinking about like my daughter. She started reading or watching Rick and Morty when she was like 9, and she was like, "This is the best thing in the entire world."
No, that show is pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. It truly is. But sometimes she will, like there was a dude who came to the school, and he was talking about the Bible and everything, and she made all her friends run away while screaming, "Pedophile, pedophile!" And the teacher asked us, like, "How does she know that word?" I'm like, Rick and Morty? I don't know.
You're like, goddamn. You're like, goddamn American cartoons. God damn it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so, all right. On the topic of Nightmare Before Christmas. So you've now worked, you've done licensed comics, you've done creator-owned comics, you've done comics for anthologies, you've done comics, you are doing comics for the big two. But what I want to know is, at what point did you start pursuing comic books full time? Like, when did it become a reality that you could be doing this full time? Especially considering that one, you said that the comic industry in Norway is vastly different, where it's like one creator doing everything. I guess, yeah. How did you get involved with doing American comics full time? Like, what was that?
Well, I never even considered writing things in Norwegian. Like, we're 5.5 million people or something, a tiny country, and I knew that whatever I was going to write wouldn't be like the market wouldn't be enough to just be here. And I think I started. I don't know how many years. I've been writing full time for 6 years, I think. And I was doing a lot of projects before I went sort of full time writer too. But what I started to do, I was writing something else. I always knew I wanted to be a writer. And while I was doing, because I'm a designer and I'm a huge sort of tech person, so I developed a bunch of, stuff like websites, and I sold it to a media company for like a decade ago or something, and I started working for that media company, like with my website, with other, but also sort of consulting for their everything. And I could sort of feel my soul being sort of sucked out with every day that passed. And I am one of those awful people that are like, my self-worth is whatever I produce. Like I'm going to put my 200% into whatever I do. And if that something is something ridiculous and heartless and commercial, it's just not as fun,
Yeah.
So I started writing, and I had a moment when I realized, because I was writing prose, and I realized like what I really want to do here is I would like to have just a reaction panel. That's what I want. And I sort of thought like, oh, but I can just write comics instead. And I started writing comics that night. And I put out an ad somewhere on the internet being like, hey, I'll pay you if you write or draw my stupid script. And that's how I got started. So I did the thing that, everyone, I feel like it's the best way to get started, is just to make a bunch of comics. Just get the experience to make comics, have great respect for the fact that the artist, it takes them longer than it takes you to write a page. So you better find some money to pay them, make as much as you can, make short things that you can just feel like you can finish a thing and be like, I wrote that thing. And then I started doing a bunch of conventions and talking to people and sort of trying to get myself out there and hope that people would pay attention, I suppose.
So, according to your Wikipedia, I got it pulled up right here. It says that you started your comic writing career in 2017 with the 6-issue Caliber comic series Ageless. And then it goes on, you did a series called Past, which was a web comic, and then you did some self-publishing. And then it jumps to 2020, where it says that it says Grønbekk was asked by Jason Aaron to co-write Jane Foster Valkyrie issue 8 through 10, so 2020. And I guess, how does it feel to... One, how did you connect with Jason Aaron? And then two, how does it feel to know that you were asked by the Thor guy at the time? You know, like when people think about all-time great Thor writers, there's no way you can't mention like Jason Aaron. So how did you two connect, and how does it feel to be working with like Jason Aaron, to be able to say that you've worked and co-wrote alongside Jason Aaron on so many comics?
It's a nice thing. I think it was we're going to blame John McCrae because it was New York Comic Con a few years ago, and I was meeting John and my friend. I just needed like 10 minutes of silence after the con because New York Comic Con is fucking intense. Like it's a lot.
It's overload in every way, like visually, audio, sensory wise, all. Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah,
for sure.
And you get a lot of sort of oddly something creeps. Like you get into situations where you think like, oh, did that happen? Did that guy lick me? Did that really happen? Like it's the most absurd like mindfuck of all times. So we were going back from the convention. John dropped off some stuff in my hotel room, and he went down to the tiki bar, like downstairs, while I just sat in silence for 10 minutes. And then I went down to meet them, and they were with some other people, like John, my friend, and some other people. And John was like, Torunn, you have to tell them the story you told me earlier. And it's this exceptionally embarrassing story of something I did just a little earlier. And so I tell these people this awful story, and they laugh, and it's a good time. And then we walk away, and then John goes, that was Jason Aaron. And I'm like, oh, great. That's fantastic. That I just, that was my introduction to him. But apparently that worked, because he was like, oh, that fucking mess, I want to work with this one. So we met up later that night, I think, and we had a very nice conversation, and we had a good time. And he's one of those... it's hard to describe how lovable Jason is. Like, he's one of the kindest, most wonderful people you'll ever have the privilege of meeting. Like, it's just, I loved him immediately. And
I think what's so interesting is juxtaposed. So you got his like personality, which I've had a chance to interview and meet him once or twice. Super approachable, down to earth, very kind. And then juxtaposed with what he writes, you're like, where there's a disconnect here, buddy. Like, where does these ideas come from?
But I think that's the beautiful thing, right? And he has such a sort of his most clear and wide and brilliant understanding of humanity. And I think we sort of connected on that a lot. And one of the things that he does, because that is a thing that I think it's very difficult, especially if you're a writer, to get people to write your stuff or read your stuff. Like if you're nobody and you want people to read your stuff, it's a hard thing, because when you pitch a book, it sounds stupid no matter what. So you can't be in a bar with your little iPad being like, hey, want to look at my book? Like, that doesn't work. And I say that with love to all the people who have come up to me with an iPad. Just, it doesn't... Send it over later, maybe. I don't know. But what Jason did was he found the webcomic and he read through it, and he sent it to Will Maas in Marvel and said, hey, I met this woman. She's from Norway. We need a new co-writer on Valkyrie. Maybe we should give her sort of a chance. And to me, like, I'd already written a thing for DC that was never made. I just wrote the script. And
that's cool.
Well, I mean, it was cool. I wrote the script, and then the editor quit. Like, I delivered the script on Tuesday, and she quit on Thursday or something. Oh, so it sort of disappeared into So I was paid to write Batman, but it just
Wow.
was never made. Yeah, that was,
Huh.
or not like the full. I think it was an issue of Detective Comics. Anyway, um,
But
so
the
I
important
had.
thing is you were already prepared. You had like samples. You also had like this
Oh yeah.
script with like, with DC. I bet that went a long way in showing like, oh, she knows what she's doing.
Oh yeah, and I think there is a certain like I don't when it comes to my job, I take my job very seriously, too seriously maybe. Like I want it to be good, and I found I think it was very kind of Jason, but I still wanted to make sure that I sort of pulled my part. So I did. I took it as an opportunity to sort of show what I could do. And one of the things I really enjoy about that story and the Jane Foster stories is when I read them now, they still sort of hold up, and that makes me happy because that's not necessarily always the case. I think it was a great first sort of dip into Marvel, and I still think like I had Will Moss and Sarah Brunstad were the editors, who are the two of the best editors in the business. I just don't think I could have been luckier
Hmm.
in my sort of initiation into monthly comics.
For sure. I mean, yeah, when you look at your bibliography, it's like, okay, yeah, she was like doing the hard work of grinding, putting out like independent comics, those anthologies I was talking about, web comics. And then all of a sudden, it's like, as soon as you get in with Jason Aaron and Marvel, now we're talking about you doing, Catwoman ongoing with DC and the stuff you got with Dynamite. I totally agree. I think you hit the jackpot in terms of like your entry into comic books. What do you think is the best piece of advice or lesson you got from like working with Jason Aaron? Like when you think back at your time, like working with him that closely, like what do you think was the biggest, lesson you pulled out of that experience?
I think one of the things that Jason does better than I think basically anyone is that he will look at the sort of rules of the world and the things that we know and think are facts, and then he'll be like, "But why are they
Hmm.
there?" Like he will fuck around with the like foundations of the universe, and it's just the most sort of delightfully creative thing if you can sort of get into that mindset of just here's a square and then we can fuck around with it, and
Wow.
before you know it is something completely else. And we had a lot of like I would ask him, can we do this, and he's like, you can do anything, just
Hmm.
if you look at it right, you can do fucking anything. And he was right.
That's
So I always sort of I have like an inner Jason telling me, just fuck around with the laws of physics, like how,
yeah.
why wouldn't you?
I love that. Everyone should have an inner Jason Aaron voice that's like super calm, but also very direct and like brave. I like
Yeah.
that. Now, clearly, you've worked with, it sounds like some amazing editors. You've worked with some of like, one of the best writers in the industry. But also, I want to put a spotlight on the artists you've worked with too, because you've worked with some talented
Just
comic artists.
ridiculous,
All right,
just beyond. Yeah.
right? Like, okay, so Catwoman, you're currently working with Danilo Beirut. Hopefully, I'm saying that right. But also, you've worked with Cafu. You've worked with Rafael Pimentel, and then my favorite, personal favorite, Matea de Lulis.
Oh,
I think that's how you
Matea
say it.
is fucking madman of a person.
I mean, like he's doing I think some issues of Absolute Wonder Woman. But before that, he was doing the Valkyrie comic series with you, and I think his stuff it's like I can't believe we get this level of realistic artwork in comics. It is so amazing. Who is your favorite? Who has been your favorite artist to work with? In terms of like pushing you, creatively, or showing you new things that are possible within comics. Is there a personal favorite?
Well, I mean, I've been so blessed with the people I've been able to work. Like the list is sort of, I don't know, that's the ridiculous thing about working with for Marvel and DC is that they do hire the best of the best, and you get to work with them, and it's just so like Perez on Carnage was a joy just because
Oh yeah.
he would immediately understand what I wanted, and I would find myself like the script for the first issue was a little longer than the script for the last issue just because I knew that he didn't need a lot to be able to just take the ball and run. But I think maybe like Nick Klein is the one where I
nice.
was like, oh, I could. He wants me to kill him, and I'm not going to be able to do it. Like it's just, and he has a way of like whatever I would do, like whatever, like we're gonna morph reality. There's gonna be a thing. We're gonna have memories flying around like little fishes, and he's like, yeah, sure. Like what else though? Like give me something I can work
Oh,
with.
that's cool.
Oh, you're gonna fight like a shadow Thor. I don't know what he looks like, but I know they takes it and runs. Like it's just he is just one of the most amazing. Not only just in his sheer sort of creativity, but it's just he's so competent, and every little inch of all of the things he does is just thoughtful and brilliant. So that was one of the times where I was just like, I got the layouts of the first Thor issue, and I thought like, oh, I need to up my game here. I need to give him some more nonsense to work with, because I can, and because he doesn't seem fazed at all by the nonsense I just gave him.
That's
So,
I mean that's kind of that level of exuberance or just amazement of seeing, you know, pages turn back in based on something that you outlined or scripted, and for it to like be perfect. I can only imagine that feeling of like, holy shit, this thing that I put, these words that I put on this paper have come to life exactly how my brain imagined. That's got to be an insane feeling.
yeah, I think the best thing is when it's just better. When it's like, oh, I didn't even.
Yeah. That's a good
Oh,
point.
and then I can sit back and be like, yeah, it was a plan all the time. It's such a brilliant idiot.
Is there anyone in the industry now that you can't wait to work with? Like, is there anyone, whether artist, writer, that you appreciate their work and you're like, man, one day I definitely want to work with, you know, XYZ?
Well, I have a long list of people,
Who's at
like
the top?
Steve Epting.
Oh, good choice.
Just
Oh my God, you and Steve Epting? You know, I'm thinking, you know, Steve Epting, you know, Captain America. Like, he's such a good. He draws really good, just believable, regular people. You know, I think about speaking about Garth Ennis. Oh my God, what was the story him and Garth Ennis did? The war story.
Nina.
Was it Nina?
No, God no. Sorry, that's my.
I think it was Sarah.
Fucking,
Yeah,
right,
that
yeah,
was
Sarah.
yours.
Sorry, I am very competent. I know all the characters. Yeah. No, Sarah.
Yeah.
That is one of my favorite comic books of all time. I think it's just it's just pure genius.
You and Steve Epting would go together like peanut butter and jelly, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And Stephen Green's a good one. Becky Cloonan, I would like to work with.
Yeah.
I don't know. The list is sort of endless. Jason Burrows, I would like to. I met him for the first time in Baltimore a few weeks ago, and I thought like, oh, we should clearly do something at some point. That would be fantastic. He's not going to be faced by anything either. He's gonna come up with some really awful, beautiful nonsense.
You're like, look, I got a bunch of dark thoughts I want to put on comic book form. I need someone that.
Like I remember, like the first comics I did. The artist was like, he did whatever I wanted, but at some point he sent me an email and just went, "Can we have less dead babies, Torunn?"
Oh, Torunn, that's a rough one.
And the thing is, it's one of the notes that I've gotten the most from people. And when I took over Red Sonja, because I told Joe Rybant this, like everyone tells me to stop killing babies, and he's like, oh, but like over in Dynamite, you can kill however many babies you want. And then we did the like free comic book day thing, yeah. And in that was supposed to be all ages. I didn't know that. I don't know. Like we don't.
Oh, shit.
Sorry, the script. Just like, I don't think we can have the dead baby though. It's like, oh shit.
He's like, hey, I gotta renege on that thing I was saying about the dead baby quota. Yeah, we actually have a quota. Oh yeah, we got a limit. I got you. Okay, well, how about this? I want to get to talking about your new comic, Nightmare Before Christmas, the Shiver of Christmas Town. But first, I want to play you a voicemail. All right, this is part of a segment I like to do on these interviews called the Short Box Friends and Family segment. Is where I shut up for a quick second and let someone else ask the questions. And this question comes from the guy that owns and runs my local comic shop. His name is Ben Kingsbury. He's the owner of Gotham City Limit comic shop here in Jacksonville, Florida. I told him that you were going to be on the show, and he said, I have a question for her. So let's go ahead and play, and let's hear from Ben. All right, here we go.
Hey, Torunn, Ben K from Gotham City Limit comic shop here in sunny Jacksonville, Florida. Thanks so much for taking some time to answer a question. So you've jumped seamlessly between Marvel's Symbiote Chaos and Venom and Carnage, DC's sleek intrigue in Catwoman, and Dynamite's Sword and Sorcery in Red Sonja. So what's the biggest challenge or thrill in switching gears between those wildly different worlds? And do you keep the core of the protagonist consistent with any specific trait? Well, I'll let you answer. Thanks so much for everything you do. We literally couldn't do it without you. And remember, Short Box Nation, always take it to the limit.
Hey,
Peace.
big shout outs to Ben. I told Ben that next time he sends in a good question like that, he's going to take me out of a job. All right, I'm supposed to be asking the good questions. So that was a good one.
That was so good. Like the radio voice, the everything, and thank you for all the very lovely things you just said there, Ben. That was beautiful.
He's going to love that you complimented his radio voice. That's actually really
It
funny.
was good. And the thing, like, it's very hard to do the radio voice. I wish I had one. Okay, the biggest challenge between the different things. I think maybe the thing that I wouldn't say struggle with, but the thing that surprised me the most is there is a distinct difference in Marvel pacing and DC pacing. And it seems to be sort of, and with the sort of what kind of emotional beats are valid sounds off, but you know what I mean? Like, you can get away with things in a Marvel book that you wouldn't necessarily get away with in a DC book, and the other way around. And I will say, like Catwoman, the scripts for Catwoman, it took me, the first time I sort of blocked out time for one, it took me like an extra month. Like, I've never worked more on a script in my life. And I realized, I thought like, oh, is this just me not being sort of into it yet? And I was so fucking into it. But the next one too, I was just like, oh, it takes me 2 weeks to write a Catwoman script. Whereas like a Carnage script, I can knock out in 3 days. And I think it sort of comes down to the different expectations and pacing of the two, not just like fandoms, but just like the two publishers have different approaches. And I'm not saying like one is better than the other. I'm just saying like for a writer, it was different. And I'm not sure it's true in every book. I'm sure there are a bunch of differences between different titles too. But to me, like writing Catwoman, it felt different from any other book I think I've ever written. And that was a glorious thing though. Like I think it's the most, it's the most satisfying thing in the world when I get a Catwoman script sort of right. But I will say, like, it takes me forever, and there are so many little puzzle pieces. And because, especially like the first year of Catwoman, DC asked me to take her out of Gotham, which means that we had no other characters to rely on. We didn't have any, like, you couldn't rely on the emotional impact of bringing in someone that the audience already knew. So we had to establish everything from the beginning, which is a difficult thing to do, and it takes a long time. So, but also insanely satisfying. So that's fun. I mean, that's probably the greatest challenge. And as for the sort of the character traits, I usually, when I approach a character, I try to sort of figure out what my idea of the character is. And usually I have a sort of, if I take on a job, I'll have a pretty good idea of what I'm dealing with. But sometimes I'll go and see what the sort of fandom thinks about a specific character, just to know what expectations are out there. And from time to time, it'll change my approach to the character. But I try to be very true to whatever I start with. I will hope to sort of change the character throughout the story, because that's sort of my job. But I do try to be as true, and it should feel as realistic as humanly possible. That's always what I'm going for. I want the characters to feel real and deep and flawed and all of the good stuff.
That's a
Which is, yeah.
No, that's a really good answer. On the topic of so it sounds like, is it safe to say your first step in getting a new assignment is research? Because you're saying like, hey, I go check out like what's the what do the fans think about this character? You know, what are their thoughts and emotions and things like that? Like, where are you going to gauge fan, I guess, reception or thoughts on the character?
Well, it's sort of, sometimes I'll read not necessarily reviews. I'll read fucking Reddit. I'll try to figure out, especially if I react to something. If I like, oh,
Mhm.
this is a little something that I really enjoy, I'll Google it and just see what comes up.
Okay.
I'll listen to podcasts a lot. Like I will listen to fan podcasts, and sometimes like I'm this close to sort of calling in and be like, hey,
Wow.
thank you. We'll find. I just want to know sort of where people are with the character, and say like for Catwoman, like I know that there is a large percentage of the Catwoman sort of community who is very they're sort of waiting for Catwoman and Batman to get back together, and it's sort of every time we do an issue where that doesn't happen, they're going to be a little bit disappointed, and that's just I know it, and then I try to sort of keep it in the back of my mind, and I have great respect for sort of anyone's love for a character, because I do truly feel like, not to be like comics are the solution to everything, but I think we are living in a time of, we need a little more empathy, right?
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I know we're at the point where people are discussing whether empathy is a good thing or not, which is downright ridiculous, but that's another thing. And one of the best ways of gaining empathy is to read about other people's experiences. And I think that's one of the most wonderful things about comics is you have a bunch of people who love these characters for so many different reasons, and they're so so caught up in these fictional characters, and it's sort of, you need empathy to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So I feel like if you have spent a lot of time emotionally bonding to a character, and I'm going to do something you don't like, I'm going to make sure that I have a good reason for it, and make sure that I honor it. I know it, and I might do something else, but at least I'm going to honor it somewhere in the process. I don't know.
I love that response. That is a very good point about the empathetic nature. I mean, I think that's true across any fan, whether it's like someone that's a huge Catwoman fan or a huge whatever Rick and Morty fan. There is a level of empathy, and then also like imprinting yourself on that person, like seeing these qualities about them that resonate with you. That's a really well said, Torunn. Uh, good.
No, I was just I've been thinking about this a lot, just because we're talking about how people are reading a lot, but they're reading like self-help books,
Hmm.
and I do sincerely think that like if you read a lot of comics, that might be better for you in every possible way.
And they look better too. Let's be real. All right. Imagine
Yeah,
a
yeah.
self-help book with Matea de Lulis illustrating the inside. I would be a better
Imagine,
person.
maybe I would read a self-help book. I would read what the fuck is it, like the never give a fuck book. I don't fuck know. If he illustrated, I would read anything but he ever touched, really.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Torrent, let's go into this segment here. Let's get to talking about The Nightmare Before Christmas, The Shiver of Christmas Town. It's coming out. Issue 1 comes out January 7th through Dynamite Entertainment. You're writing it, and you've got Edu Mena doing the art and interiors. Yeah, like I said in the beginning, it's the first ever. Let me make sure I got this right. It is the Dynamite's first ever ongoing comic book series set in the world of the beloved film by Tim Burton, which is surprising. This is definitely, I feel like, a property and a franchise, a movie that would work in comic book form. So I guess, how does it feel to be spearheading kind of like this first ever for Dynamite? How did the opportunity to write The Nightmare Before Christmas come about?
first of all, I'm not entirely sure it is, because first of all, there was a graphic novel called All
Okay.
Hail the Pumpkin Queen, I think. But that was a graphic novel. This is
Sure.
the first one, but this is also a miniseries, so it's just 4 issues.
Okay.
But I will say it was delightful. I'm like, we don't do Halloween in Norway. We didn't used to do Halloween in Norway at all. But lately, over the past like 7, 8 years or something, it's sort of slowly started to become a thing. And I'm so there. I love Halloween. I think it's the most glorious thing in the world. So what I do every year is that I'll project Nightmare Before Christmas on my barn, which is where I am right now. That's where
Cool.
my studio is. Yeah. So all the kids in the neighborhood will see that we are open for the nonsense. You should feel free to come and do whatever you want to. Really, I always try to get someone to do some tricks, but they never do, because we haven't quite gotten there in Norway yet. And I think maybe that Joe saw that on my Instagram once, that I did the Nightmare Before Christmas. So when they needed a writer for it, I think it was just like, oh, let's just get Torunn, because she obviously knows and loves the movie. And I think it's like, to me, it was a big deal when it came out
Mm-hmm.
in the 90s. I was a very sort of metal alternative gothic kid. And I think it's one of the first times we've ever seen that part, like a mainstream thing, where we saw the sort of the dark creatures in any way without it being mocking, or like they took it seriously, like Tim Burton has. You can sort of tell that he loves what he's doing. And I thought it was delightful. So I loved the movie growing up. And I sort of jumped on the opportunity to do something in the world of it. Obviously now, like, Disney has taken over or maybe they did. Like, I don't remember if they were the one publishing it in the 90s. But I realized, like, it's a huge IP for
Mm-hmm.
Disney, and they have games, and they have a bunch of different things going on. But I don't think, like, this would be the second narrative written story in the universe, which is like, it feels, it's a very fun thing to do. But like a lot of, I don't know, like, it's a strange honor in a way. And I
Yeah.
felt
I
like
mean,
I didn't want to let myself down somehow. Like, it would have been a huge deal for me.
yeah. I mean, for sure. I mean, look, Nightmare Before Christmas. I don't. I think it's an understatement to say that people love this franchise, this movie. I mean, it's a Tim Burton classic for many. I mean, if someone was to say, "Hey, my favorite Tim Burton movie is Nightmare Before Christmas," you're like, "Yeah, that's a very obvious, great choice right there." I'd say the 89 Batman, but I totally respect someone saying, Nightmare Before Christmas. I guess what in these 4 issues, what's the story? Like, what can fans of the movie expect from this? Like, what? Yeah, I guess what's the story about?
First of all, I keep in mind that this is we wanted this to be like all ages, but we also wanted to work for the grown-ups who love the movie and everything. So the story is that Dr. Finkelstein is supposed to create a huge, awful new sort of monster for Halloween. And he fucks up. So the monster that sort of comes out of his machine is tiny and cute. It's just a little cute bear, and a failure. And I think there's something sort of inherently interesting about being born as a failure. If like your creator thinks you're a failure. And there's something there that I find delightful. It sounded wrong, but you know what I mean. So this little bear, like Dr. Finkelstein, needs to fix the situation and sort of leaves the bear in Shiver, in the hands of Sally. But along the way, the bear is picked up by Lock, Shock, and Barrel, who are on their own little trick-or-treating adventure. And then, badness ensues. Like, they head out on a journey, they piss off some ghouls, they try to bring trick-or-treating to Christmas Town, but they're obviously not going to do it like they're going to do it properly, because they are possibly the most fun characters you can ever have the honor to write, I think.
Yeah.
Like Lock, Shock, and Barrel, they're just sort of fundamentally up to no good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just glorious. But yeah, so they bring the bear, stuff happens.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. We don't want to spoil it, but I will say the thought of this creature Shiver, right, where he's supposed to. The intention was big scary monster, but you get adorable, cute, almost like puppy bear. I think fits into the overall just aesthetic and theme of Night Before Christmas, where on the outside, on the face value, it's dark. It's just the aesthetic of it is really leans into the Halloween part of it. But then you have like this whole other part where Jack Skellington wants to bring in the original movie, it's him wanting to bring Christmas to Halloween Town, and I think just that those two juxtapositions of like Halloween, scary, dark, this aesthetic here, but the spirit of like Christmas, the joy, the gift giving, those two worlds brought together. That's why I like the movie. It's like this kind of seamless like combination of these two, and it sounds like you're kind of carrying on that theme here in this new series.
I think one of the most delightful about the original movie is when they're trying to do Christmas and they just fail miserable because it's just like that.
Exactly.
And that's sort of the point. Like, and when Lock, Shock, and Barrel takes Shiver to Christmas Town, they try to do Halloween there, and they obviously fail miserably because they are sort of sweet, and it's just a really fun, really sort of. I hope it's a delightful thing that would delight both young and old. And if you ever sit around thinking, oh, like I've read Torunn stuff before, you would think that there would be a punchline to this scene that would be far over any sort of, that was what I wrote in the first place. And then someone at some point went, no.
Yeah,
that execution joke that's one too far. Like it's just,
they're like, hey, this doesn't have to be highbrow. This could be just fun and matter of fact. I will say, I have not had a chance to read it or get a preview yet. But I imagine, you've got a track record of working with some of the best artists in the game. So I imagine Edu Mena has brought his A game to the series. What I can say, though, is there are some great, in true Dynamite fashion, they always have some of the best variant covers out there. But there's a Jay Lee cover of Daisy holding Shiver. And I think it's fantastic. Jay Lee, his style with A Nightmare Before Christmas is such a, it's like, yes, that makes so much sense.
I think Edu, who's on the interior, I think it's a difficult job to do because you have to do something that was like create something. We all know the art style, and you have to recreate it somehow on the page without losing sort of the movement and everything. And he's done such an exceptionally good job at that. And in many ways, like his job was a lot harder than mine because you have to stay true to all of the environments that were in the movie, and we were trying to get all of those things correct, and he's done just the most amazing job. So when I'm over here complaining about my stupid jokes, like Edu is the one who really and I think that's how it's always going to be when you work with licensed. Like I remember working on Warhammer, like a Warhammer book a few years ago, and you get to, like, that's the same thing. Like every little thing needs to be correct, and I think that's how it needs to be, right? Because you don't want to let down the fans, and But he's amazing. He's done a great job, and I hope people will kind of get a feel of the movie through the art.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. And I said Daisy, I meant to say Sally. I know that there's some serious Night Before Christmas fans.
We all understood. Oh, yeah.
For sure. I don't want to get the Disney lawyers upset on this episode. Okay, Torunn, I got a question on the topic of holidays. You mentioned that Halloween is not like the most celebrated, biggest holiday in Norway, but you celebrate it. I do know one thing about Norway is that they do Christmas right. And I want to hear from you. What's Christmas like in Norway? Like I was doing some research. I came across like this special bread pudding that's like a thing there. I've seen some pictures of Oslo, decorated during Christmas time, and it looks fucking amazing. What is, through your perspective, like what is it like celebrating Christmas in Norway?
I think like it's impossible to be indifferent to the seasons in Norway. Like we have, because it's just like now it's so dark. Like we barely see the sun, and we know that like probably we might get some daylight at some point, but I don't think we're going to see like a sunny day until February.
Damn.
So it is a sort of we live with the seasons in a way that I find like I disappoint my younger self by talking about the weather so much, just because it's just so ever present.
Yeah, we all do.
And you can sort of tell how like all of the food that we eat, like the traditional food, is obviously just like we've been a country where for at least like 8 months nothing grows, so everything is sort of either pickled or we saved something, or like it's all very like it's sparingly done in every way, but it's also very heartful. And I think one of the things that we do, I know the Danish sort of term hygge has had it's become a thing over in America. That's sort of like when the darkness comes and it gets really cold, we do tend to sort of automatically we light all the candles and we do all the things to sort of stay warm and stay together in a way, and everything slows down a bit. So Christmas is like we eat a huge meal on the 24th, not on the 25th, and that's when we do the presents too. So we sort of chuck everything in that one day, and everyone gets off. Like you can't buy anything on the 25th of December. Like everything is just closed for a while. So it feels like a sort of very quiet, lovely, sort of joyous time. I don't know.
What is your favorite traditional Norwegian like dish that you eat during Christmas time?
It would be pinnekjøtt, which I suppose like loosely translates to stick meat, which is it's just like a piece of the lamb that's been brewing in salt for half a year or something, and then we
half a year.
I don't know. There's some nuts. Like
wow, that's one hell of a brine.
The thing is, like, we spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to keep food okay in this nightmare world of ours, right? So all of the food is just based on sort of desperately trying to keep things okay. So we have a bunch of salted fish and salted everything, and we use all the parts of the animal because we were all dirt poor until we found oil after the war, which was good for us.
Yeah.
But all our traditions are based on like no one has anything anyway. So yeah, which is good. So yeah, the stick meat. That's my favorite.
I love some meat on a stick. And I love lamb. I'm Moroccan. My mom stays cooking some lamb, and she can cook some damn good lamb. So sign me up for that.
I'm gonna come to Florida. I'm gonna find your mother.
Oh my God! Yeah. We'll try. Yeah.
And we'll go visit Ben at his comic shop.
Ben would lose. Actually, Ben would absolutely welcome you with open arms. We would welcome you with open arms. And with that being said, Torunn, I have one last question. You said something earlier about, I think it was something effective, like, knowing the place and time to share your work, or getting how difficult it is to, as a writer, to get other writers to read your work. And especially like knowing the place and time. You shouldn't go to a bar or club and try to have someone like take time to read. So my question to you is, how should an aspiring writer approach like pitching other writers to take a look at their work? Like what are some best practices? What works on you? Like if someone wants to share, hey, I've got this great story, Torunn, I would love for you to read it, give me some feedback. What is like an ideal way of them approaching you for constructive criticism?
First of all, like not the bar, but like be a person in the bar and make all the jokes and everything, and then come by at the convention the next day and hand over a comic, which I always think is a glorious thing. I usually do a sort of like if like we will trade a comic, and I think it's usually when people send me an email going, "Hey, can you read through this?" And I will certainly do. I always feel a little odd about giving criticism, though. I feel like it's not always my place to be like, honestly, I'm not used to it. I know what I like, but that's not necessarily an indication of quality. It's just what I sort of like. But what can happen is, of course, that if you do that to people and they do like it, they will keep you in the back of your keep you in mind. And I think it's like on TikTok now, there are some great comic creators, indie creators sharing their process and talking about their books. And I'm on TikTok, at least in the sense that I sometimes post videos of my fucking cat and maybe some really horny moose. That happens. There are a lot of moose and foxes. I don't know.
Did you say horny moose?
Yeah. Did you? We had I have a cabin in the forest, in the Swedish forest. And it's like in the middle of absolute fuck all nowhere. And we have a lot of moose. And I had a few weeks ago, there was a very horny moose ox walking around the cabin just screaming for this lady, and I caught it on tape. So I keep posting shit like that on my social media in the hopes that
that's where that viral moose sound came from.
Yeah.
Thank you, Torunn. We got you to thank.
Yeah. Very, very proud. It's my legacy. Just trying. I don't want to have opinions on the internet, but I do have moves. Yeah, but anyway, point is the TikTok. Like, if you and that's it's a difficult thing to post videos of yourself and everything, but trying to become a part of the community and sharing your work, and I think it's such a natural I know a bunch of people and I know their work, and I follow their work now because I see how generous they are with their time for other younger creators. And I just become part of the community, and we will start paying attention. And it's obviously it's easier for artists because it's so easy to see if you like something or not. But leave a comic at the table, send a PDF with a nice note,
That's good.
And
I like that.
And just know that even though the writers work for cool companies, we're not necessarily the ones who hire people. But I will say, the first time when I was hired by DC, it was because another person in the community retweeted something that I said, and then some DC editor picked up on it and just went in and checked out
that's cool.
the webcomic at the time. And I think that's also vital. Like, if you want to be a writer, make sure that there is something that you have written online somewhere. It doesn't need to be like a bunch of pages, just like a couple of a quick little story somewhere. So if you catch someone's interest, there is something there to be seen.
That is great feedback. I love that piece of advice. So, in summation, be likable, network, and be a part of the community, and have some work examples online readily available in case an editor is checking out your stuff. That was really good feedback. And I think with that being said, ladies and gents, this is the Shortbox Podcast, and we just finished talking to Torunn Grønbekk about pretty much everything she's got going on, right? Like, she is writing Catwoman currently for DC. She's writing Spider-Girl for Marvel. She's got that Nightmare Before Christmas, the Shiver of Christmas Town #1, coming out through Dynamite on January 7th. Final order cutoff, by the way, is December 8th. I think this episode should be up by that time. If not, then you got to go pick up issue 1 of Nightmare Before Christmas, the Shiver of Christmas Town, when it hits shops on January 7th. I will have links to Torunn's social media account. I think you should definitely follow her on Instagram. She posts some amazing paintings and horny animals. Who doesn't want to see that? I'll post links to her Instagram and her website in this episode's description and show notes. Give her a follow. Check out that stuff. Torunn, is there anything else that you got going on that I did not mention? Any shameless plugs, any parting words before we wrap up?
That was very good. I don't have anything that I can talk about yet, but if you want to follow along, Instagram for the horny moose and my newsletter for occasional updates about whatever I'm
there
doing.
We go. All right, I'll have that linked in the show notes. Torunn, you've been great, and I have never wanted a part 2 interview to talk about everything non-comic related. I just want to know more about your life and living in the woods, in the wilderness of Norway. We'll figure out another time, but you've been great. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really great.